for a week to Brother Roger. I asked him last week, Brother Roger, if you and Miss Becca would stand, if any of y'all haven't got to meet them, I'd like for y'all to meet your new pastor associate and his wife, and that's his grandkids and his son and daughter-in-law beside him. God has blessed us to have them. Thank y'all so much. And I told him, I said, in 31 minutes, I'm handing over the reign. And I gave him 2 pages of stuff he had to do this week. He said, brother, you go. I got it. And I said, man, thank you, Jesus. We're glad you're here. If you have your Bibles, be turning to Exodus chapter number 11. Exodus chapter number 11. I want to speak to you on the subject very quickly for about 30 minutes and 30 seconds on what is the big deal. What is the big deal? Do you realize, and I'm going to throw this out conservatively because you can kind of tie it all together if you wanted to. Do you realize that 75% of this book is instruction and detail of the importance of you faithfully following God? Now that's conservatively, 75%. Do you realize that 75%, conservatively speaking, of the sermons that will be preached in this hour are going to be about the importance of you faithfully following God? 75% of Sunday school lessons that will be taught today will be about the importance of you faithfully following God. What is the big deal? Why is it so important? Why is it so necessary? Why is it so critical and crucial that God used up this precious space in His Word to over and over and over and over and over again to teach us and to tell us and try to guide us and instruct us? Listen to me, faithfully follow me. Why is it so important? Well, I want to read to you a little story here. It's just 3 verses. But within these 3 verses, I believe it encapsulates as clearly as any verses in the Bible as to what is really at stake and why it is such a big deal for you to faithfully follow God. You see, there's a lot of people trying to follow God, but they're not really doing it faithfully. You know how I know that? Because there's not as many people here today as there was last Sunday. Right? So they're trying to follow God, but they're not really trying to faithfully follow God. Do you understand the difference, what I'm saying? It's okay. They're not watching. You can say amen. To faithfully follow God. I want you to listen to these 3 verses. Look with me in Exodus chapter 11 and verse number 1. It says, and the Lord said unto Moses, yet will I bring one more plague upon Pharaoh and upon Egypt. Afterwards, he will let you go from here. When he shall let you go, he shall surely thrust you out from here altogether. Speak now in the ears of the people, and let every man borrow or ask of his neighbor, and every woman of her neighbor, jewels of silver and jewels of gold. And the Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. Moreover, the man Moses was very great in the land of Egypt, in the sight of Pharaoh's servants and in the sight of the people. Let me tell you why it's such a big deal. Let me tell you why it's so important for you to faithfully follow God. Number 1 is because of this. When you do, He will always make a way. He'll always make a way. Now, if you listen to verse 1, let's just read it again. And the Lord said unto Moses, yet will I bring one plague more upon Pharaoh and upon Egypt. Afterwards he will let you go from here. When he shall let you go, he shall surely thrust you out from here altogether. Now I want you to understand, all of this was going to take place because Moses had been faithfully following God. And he said, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to make a way when there was no way. You see, up until this point, as Moses was talking with Pharaoh and all the plagues had been happening, you remember the frogs, the gnats, and the blood and all of that. Every time Moses talked to Pharaoh, you know what he was asking him for? If you go back and read it, you'll find that this is true. He wasn't asking to let my people go forever. He was asking, can we get a 3-day pass? Can we go 3 days into the wilderness and sacrifice? But because he remained faithfully following everything that God said, God came to him and said, okay, get ready, because there's one more plague, and when I send this plague, listen, we're not going for a 3-day trip. He said, I'm going to take you out of here altogether. In other words, he said, when you faithfully follow me, I will give you a way out of your mess. You ain't got to raise your hand, but how many of you are in a mess? How many of you need a way out of your mess? Let me tell you how you find it. Faithfully follow God. And he will always make a way. You see, rather than worrying about all those obstacles that you have in life, and boy, we got them, don't we? Huh? When it comes to the obstacles of life, man, we can face them all because we know that we're facing great fears in our life. I read something not long ago, and I don't remember the statistics, and I don't remember where it came from, and I don't really remember what the article was about. But let me tell you what I learned. They said that more now than ever, the average person is living with a continual fear of something. And the more I thought about that, the more I thought that's true. It's true. I've had people come to me before, Brother Jeremy, I need you to pray for me. I don't know. It's just got me so tore up. And I said, what's the matter? Well, I mean, it's just terrible. Something's going on in Yugoslavia. Really? Really? Is that south of Possum Trot or... And I'm not saying we don't care and worry and pray about our brothers and sisters all across the globe, but what I'm making is if you want to, you can find all the fears that'll hold you over for the rest of your life. We've got all kinds of obstacles in front of us. Finances. Has anybody got more money than they know what to do with? I'm going on vacation. This is a serious question. We've always got worries about finances. We've always got concerns about the future. We've always got concerns about our family and our friends. There's all kinds of obstacles to get us marred down in a mess. But let me tell you this. If you'll quit focusing on the obstacles and just focus on being faithful to follow God, you might be amazed at just what God might do and make a way out of that mess for you. Now, I took up 3 or 4 minutes there to basically say this. It does not matter what your mess is. It does not matter what your obstacle is. It doesn't matter if it's problems in a marriage or problems with your mortgage. It does not matter. The only solution to your mess is for you to just once and for all make a commitment. I'm going to faithfully follow God and trust Him at His word. And I promise you, when you do that, He will make a way. You'll come tell me, Brother Jeremy, I don't get it. You know what? I don't either. But I know it's true. Why is it a big deal? I'll tell you why. Because this is how you navigate the messes of life. This is how you get through this crazy thing called life, is just faithfully follow God, and He will always make a way. Secondly, with 22 minutes left, when you faithfully follow God, He will cause good favor to fall on your family and friends. Look with me at verse 2 again. He said, "Speak now in the ears of the people, and let every man borrow of his neighbor, and every woman of her neighbor jewels of silver and jewels of gold. And the Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. I want you to understand something this morning. You faithfully following God affects way more than just you. Oh, there's no doubt in my mind, Roger. Ooh, the favor that I have found. Give me a second. Because of my mom and dad. Because of who my grandparents were. There's no doubt in my mind whatsoever. The troubles that I avoided, the dangers, the pitfalls I didn't fall in, the could-haves and should-haves. And I'm going to be honest, there's a whole lot of you Swan and me at Mafia. You was with me, so some of it spilled over on y'all. Y'all got some of that favor too. Because of the faithfulness of the Father. You see what happened here? God said, Moses, you've been faithful. You faithfully followed. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to go tell all the children of Israel to go to the people of Egypt and tell them that you want to borrow their treasure. Now think about this. There's a few things here you've got to really wrap your mind around before you get what's going on. First of all, you've got to remember the children of Israel were being held as slaves by the Egyptian people. And God said, now you go tell them ask them if you can borrow their credit card. Ask them if you can have the key to their safe. These people knew that Moses was trying to lead them out. Think about what they were asking. They found favor from their enemy. Let that sink in a minute. They found favor from their enemy. They knew that they were trying to free them. And he said, it just blows me away. He said, go tell them you want to borrow all their gold and silver. That would be like me saying, I'm fixing to leave the country. Could I borrow all your money? That's what was going on. That makes as much sense as if Tommy asked me to borrow a piece of my cake. You know that ain't coming back. You know it ain't. And yet, God, because Moses was faithfully following him, he caused the Egyptians to say, oh yeah, sure, here. Take this piece of cake. Take all my gold. Take all my silver. Some things was going on here that proves the favor that they were getting because of faithfulness. But the most important thing that I want you to see here, now get this, the children of Israel that was getting all that favor, all the gold and silver, ooh, this is good, Tim, you ready? They ain't done squat yet. They had not taken one step to faithfully follow God. They hadn't done nothing. In fact, all they had done was complain to Moses. And yet God caused favor to fall on their life simply because one man, Moses, was faithfully following God. I want you to understand why it's a big deal for you to faithfully follow God, because your kids' lives depend upon it. Your grandkids' lives depend upon it. Your neighbors' lives depend upon it. It ain't a big deal, it's a huge deal. May very well be that kid didn't get sick, or he did make it into that school, or he had this happen, and their marriage stayed together, all because you stayed faithful. You see, being faithful brings good favor. And sometimes it's passed on to our family and friends. So what's the big deal with 16 minutes left? What's the big deal? Let me tell you why it's so important for you to faithfully follow God. Because when you do, He'll always make a way. He'll get you in and out and around that mess every single time. Why is it a big deal? Because He will cause favor to fall upon your family and friends solely because of your faithfulness. Why is it a big deal? Let me tell you why. Because God will always bring it full circle. I want you to listen to verse 3 again. And the Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. Now here we go, get this. Moreover, the man Moses was great in the land of Egypt. He was great in the sight of Pharaoh's servants. And he was great in the sight of the people. Now I want you to listen to me closely. If you don't hear what I'm fixing to say, you're going to miss this whole point. Faithfully following God is not always popular. Faithfully following God is not always easy. Faithfully following God don't always build friends. But faith following God faithfully will always come full circle. Now listen, did you hear what that verse just said? Moses was great in all the land of Egypt. He was great in the eyes of Pharaoh's servants. And he was great in the eyes of his own people. Let me let you in on a little secret you may or may not remember. Wasn't always that way. You see, it had just been a few years before this. If you remember, Moses was hated, he was hunted, and he was hiding. Now all of a sudden he's feared and revered. You know why? Because he remained faithful to God. He faithfully followed God, and it came full circle. You remember, Moses was an Israelite, but he was being raised in Pharaoh's home. And he went out one day and he saw the Pharaoh's servant beating one of his fellow Israelites. And what did he do? He killed him and hid him in the sand. The next day, he saw two Israelites fighting, and he comes and said, guys, why are y'all doing that? Y'all brothers. And they said, oh, what are you going to do? Kill us like you did the Egyptian? Moses knew the gig was up. And he became hated, not only by the Egyptians, but by the Israelites. And then he became hunted. They searched for him to take his life, and he took off running and finally ended up out in the desert somewhere hiding. See, up to that point, he wasn't faithfully following God. How'd that work out for him? He was hated, hunted, and hiding. But when he started faithfully following God, something changed. He became great in the eyes of Egypt. He became feared and revered in the eyes of Pharaoh's servants. You see, what happens is sometimes we get so hung up on whether or not it's popular, or whether or not people are going to think we're weird, or whether or not people are going to talk bad about us, or is it going to make me look stupid? And we get caught up on all that stuff. And what do? We step out of the flow and we quit faithfully following God and just say, well, I'll just try to follow God. I'll try to follow God from off to the side. It don't work. But when you faithfully follow God, God brings it full circle. I've got an illustration that I want to give. But I've asked for a little help. Now, nobody pass out. Don't get too excited. Brett, give me. I've asked this guy right here to help me preach a little this morning. Because we know a story, and he's the one that actually remembers it. And he's going to share with you something that illustrates how it always comes full circle.
going on vacation. We're going to let you speak. You let me know what they think about how you spoke while I'm out of town, and we'll leave it with Roger. So that, brother, get ready. But no, seriously, we're glad to have you, Roger. And like I said, when you're a young kid growing up, you don't think about a lot of things. But when I found out Roger was coming to pastor for us, a lot of stuff started coming back when we were kids, this, that, and the other. And I've got 2 short scriptures I want to read, and then I'll talk for 20 minutes like you asked me to on Roger. So Matthew 5:44 says, "But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless those who curse you, do good to those that hate you, and pray for those that spitefully use you and persecute you." And the other one is in 2 Timothy verse 12. "Yes, and all who desire to live godly in Jesus Christ will suffer persecution." And why I say that is everybody that's ever been a kid, especially a boy, when you're growing up, like Jeremy said, worshiping the Lord is not always popular. You got kids that really ain't mean, but a lot of them got a lot of stuff to say when a guy does worship the Lord, especially at a young age. And I just wanted to say, I can remember Roger, when you're, I don't know how Marshall County is, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, you're kind of spread out. But when we went to junior high, Roger was in 8th grade, I was in 7th. And I've known Roger because, like I said, we're all Swanee boys. And first thing I noticed about Roger when I come to class in 7th grade, he's 13. He's got every book that goes in that locker under his arm, plus the Bible. And like I said, when you're kids, you don't think a lot about that. But as looking back, I remember Roger taking a whole lot of heat for packing that Bible. Come into the PE class, you go in the gym, you go in the locker room, everybody else is wanting to play ball and stuff. Roger did too, but he always had that Bible. 13-year-old. All the way through high school, Roger had that Bible. And don't let that sweet disposition fool you, because him and that whole O'Brien clan will get with you. So if anybody knows him, they know that. And like I said, me and Jeremy talking, I told him, I said, you know, I knew many, many times that Roger got ridiculed and aggravated because he was a soldier of God at 13. And I promise you, he was a soldier of God before 13. We just didn't kind of get in the class the way the school was laid out. But I always remember that about Roger. Then when he got to high school, we all kind of keep up with each other. We didn't see each other forever. He stayed on me 20 years to come to church. Finally did. He about passed out. But keeping up with Roger, I knew he went in the Army. Then I had run into his sister, check on Roger. Well, he's preaching for the Army. Well, I always knew that that would probably happen in Roger's life. But as stand-up guys he is, I know we've got a lot of veterans in here. He stands up so much for his cause. He gets out of the Army, gets back in the Army, goes through boot camp twice. How many of you been through boot camp twice? That young man right there stood up for what he believed in, packed his Bible, took what they gave him, and kept right on churning. Well, he's been to Alaska, all kind of other places, and now he's full circle back to us. So like Jeremy said, a soldier of God will get the blessings that he'll have you, and they will come full circle. So like I said, he's been Alaska, all across the country, and all the way back to this beautiful place with another Swanee boy, preaching to a heathen Swanee boy, and Mo and Brad and a few other heathens. And I couldn't be more tickled to death and feel like that this church is blessed because I have known him since he was a young kid. And I will just let everybody know he has always been a soldier of God. And for that, Roger, we appreciate it. And I'm so glad to have you and your family and me personally. And I know my buddy over here could not be more happy. I'm his vent pipe. I know he's your all's vent pipe. But if they kind of know the hours we spend in my office venting to each other, you liable to be scared of both of us. So, but with that being said, Brother Roger, I'm tickled to death you're here, brother. Please get all that stuff we aggravated you about when we was young. And like I said, I just wanted everybody to know a little personal story. That man right there has stood up for the man since he's been a little bitty kid. At school, at home, when nobody's around. So that right there, if that don't make you a good associate pastor, I don't know where you're going to find one better than that. And Brother Tim, please come back a little more, because when he said this, brother, I didn't know if it was going to be thunderstorms all day or just till church was over. So I appreciate y'all letting me have some time. Thank you, brother, for letting me speak. Brother Roger, we appreciate you, brother, more than you know, and your family. Thank you.
Hey, faithfully following God ain't always easy, but it always comes full circle. And here's the good part. He's brought him back home. He's brought him here with us. But this ain't the payoff. You see, I just hope one day when we're standing before God, I hope I'm within earshot when Roger stands before God and his life is played back of all the times he got ridiculed or picked on or put down for faithfully following God. I hope I'm within earshot when I hear God say, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." Would you stand with me, heads bowed?